Welcome to RPG Heroes, a podcast where every other week I speak to a true hero in the realm of role-playing games about their journey, their craft, and their views. As your host, I will focus on one particular aspect of this wonderful hobby for the interview, regale you with stories from my own 25 years of experience with role-playing games, and reflect on the major takeaways from the interview. Join me now on this epic journey and awaken the hero in you. Welcome to episode 21 of the RPG Heroes podcast. And today we're going to be talking about the apocalypse in RPGs. And to help us out with this particular topic, we have the amazing duo Pelle Nilsson and Johan Nohr, the creators of Mörk Borg. You heard it right, people. These quadruple any-winning guys have taken the time to have a chat with me about their favorite topic, which is the end of the world. And, well, as it turns out, it is actually a lot of fun to talk about the end of the world, and it can be a lot of fun to play around with it in role-playing games. So, let's talk about that. But first, some brief podcast news. So, we're getting very close to 4,000 downloads, which is exciting, and I'm confident that I'm going to break through that barrier before the end of the year, or before the end of the world, as would be more suitable for this particular episode. And we're also getting close to roughly 400 followers on Twitter, which is cool. So I would say my main social media outlet for this podcast. I'm also on Facebook. But I think my following there is a good bit smaller. I used to use Instagram, but I just don't get it, so I got rid of that. Anyway, so there's growth, there's stuff happening, and that's good to see, really, when it comes to the podcast. Last week, I ran a convention game for Albacon, as I advertised a few times now on the show, and we played the adventure in the Cyberpunk Red Jumpstart kit, and I have to say it was a blast. I have some really, really good friends who volunteered to play it with me the day before the actual convention game, just to kind of try things out and cut my teeth on it, and that went really well, and we had a lot of fun. Especially interesting because those friends are the ones I play Cyberpunk 2020 with, and they had some doubts about whether or not they wanted to see the changes that were coming in Cyberpunk Red. But at the end of the evening, they were all very excited about it. And I have to say, the same was very much true for the convention group. In fact, one of them got so excited that right after he actually bought the Cyberpunk Red Jumpstart kit. So that's really cool. So we had a lot of fun. And it was actually a really great experience, this particular convention. Excuse me. So it was really well organized. Everything was very tightly arranged through things like Discord, etc. It was very clear who was in my slot, etc. Who was going to be in my game, and communication was super smooth overall. And from what I've heard, they've picked up a good amount of money for their charity. It's good to give, so that's excellent. Well done to the organizers of that convention. And of course, as the end of the year was just mentioned, and the end of the world, some people might be wondering what's up for the end of the year for the podcast. Well, I don't know yet, but I am thinking about the format, etc., and a possible season 2, and what should that look like. So if you have any ideas, then by all means join my Patreon and join the conversation. All right. For now, though, let's look at how many different ways we can destroy the world. So, the apocalypse. Some of you might be wondering, didn't you cover all that in episode 10 when we talked about post-apocalyptic games? Well, yes, I covered some of it. Mostly, I covered what happens after an apocalypse. In this particular episode, though, we're going to look at both sides of it and also the middle. So, really, everything about the apocalypse and why it's so much fun. And of course, don't get me wrong, a real apocalypse wouldn't be fun at all. In fact, I think a lot of us are experiencing something akin to what an apocalypse could be like if it's virus / politics based. But let's not get into that too much. We're in this hobby, I think, for the most part, to escape reality a little bit at a time. The apocalypse. Apocalypse, sorry, a bit hard to say, comes from a Greek word which sounds, I guess, like apocalypse. I see the spelling here, but I have no clue how to speak Greek, so I'm not even going to try. And apparently in the Greek sense of the word, it means uncovering. So it literally means to take away the cover of something. And when you look at that idea of an apocalypse, suddenly the apocalypse gets a very, very, very different feeling than just, oh, it's the end of the world. Well, yes, it is, but it's also the end of something. It's the end of a certain way the world is or was. An apocalypse can then also be a revelation or a disclosure. And that's also how apocalypse became known in Middle English, which is interesting. And if you look at the biblical meaning of an apocalypse, well, it was apparently the name of the last book in the New Testament, which is also called Revelation. So apocalypse and revelation is kind of the same thing. And it's about prophetic visions of upheaval and destruction, culminating in the Bible then, in the second coming of Christ. In other words, not necessarily a bad thing altogether. It's just not pleasant to be in it, if I'm being a bit farcical about it. And the current meaning of it, which kind of covers any disaster or cataclysm, wasn't really seen until the late 19th century. Interesting stuff. All right, but what does that mean for our games? And which genres does this apply to, etc.? Well, I have good news. This applies to any genre of role-playing game that there is, as far as I'm concerned. Because any kind of world can have an apocalypse. And any kind of game that you want to play in whatever system it is you're playing could have an apocalypse. In fact, a lot of what you might see as traditional fantasy settings have some sort of apocalypse in their past, or are working towards a certain apocalypse. Perhaps something the players or the PCs are trying to hold off or stop. Or perhaps it's not stoppable at all. Maybe it can just be delayed. Or maybe the apocalypse is a good thing, right? So in any kind of genre, you could do it in a cyberpunk game, in a sci-fi game. In fact, the new game by James Introcaso called Burn Bright is all about that. It's about space, the galaxy kind of falling apart. So there is an apocalypse going on in that particular game. And then a Wikipedia article that I also mentioned in episode 10, which I'm just going to repeat for good order. It gives you so much information, well, maybe even inspiration as to what you could do with an apocalypse, and also what it could be like with different types of apocalypses. If apocalypse even has a plural, I don't know. So the apocalypse event, and I'm now quoting, by the way, from Wikipedia, may be climatic, such as runaway climate change. Hello, 2020. It may be astronomical, such as an impact event. Well, Earth has seen one or even more of those. It could be destructive, such as a nuclear holocaust or resource depletion. Again, not super unlikely in our current situation. Medical, such as a pandemic. Whether natural or human caused. It could be an end time, such as the Last Judgment, the Second Coming, or Ragnarok. Or more imaginative, such as a zombie apocalypse, cybernetic revolt, technological singularity, dysgenics, or an alien invasion. That last one is one that I used in a cyberpunk campaign once, shocking my players, to be honest, because aliens are not supposed to be in that game. I said, well, yeah, certain things are not supposed to happen, but they happen. Good luck. What are you going to do about it? And for your games, this means that there's loads of different ways that an apocalypse could take shape. And what this article then starts to tell us about, which I really love as well, is that this story, because this is an article about fiction around apocalypse and post-apocalypse, what the article then goes on to say is that, well, the story, in other words, the game, may involve attempts to prevent an apocalypse event. It could be dealing with the impact and the consequences of the event itself, so you're in the middle of it. Or it may be post-apocalyptic, set after the event. And in that case, the time may be directly after, focusing on the psychology of the survivors, the way to maintain the human race, or whatever race it is, alive and together as one, or considerably later, often including the existence of pre-catastrophe civilization that has been mythologized, such as Numenera. So really, when you think about it, an apocalypse has a huge number of applications in a role-playing game, especially when you're crafting your own campaign, or even when you're creating your setting. Why is the setting the way it is? And if you have something weird going on in your setting, a very easy and plausible solution to why might it be like that could be some form of apocalypse, right? If you look at Earth and the way it's shaped, a lot of the more dramatic, interesting shapes on our planet's surface are caused by, well, events that you would rather not be near, all right? So very kind of dramatic events, some of them taking a long time perhaps, but still, the creation of a mountain that could be seen as an apocalyptic event all on its own. And the same for the parting of the continents. Imagine that you somehow witness this. Suddenly, your neighbors are miles away across some sort of sea that wasn't there before. And so I think that an apocalypse is just a really great vehicle for change. And change in a role-playing game, I think, is often good. So static is maybe interesting for a while. And then, if you want to shake things up, an apocalypse is a great way to do it, really. One fantasy campaign that I ran for a bunch of years when I lived in Belfast was played in Dungeons & Dragons 3.5. Not that that's super important, but some people are curious. And that particular game, I wouldn't classify it as post-apocalyptic in any kind of way. However, the basis for the story was very much that of an apocalypse, which happened long, long, long ago for the player characters. So they weren't there and they didn't, perceive it in any kind of way. But there was a huge gash in the planet. Something caused that. Well, yes, an apocalyptic event. In fact, a god died. Not just any. The head of the pantheon died at that very spot. And the characters won't find this out until very late in the game, realizing that they are trying to bring the reborn God of Gods back to where he needs to be to start running the world again. But so the whole campaign was centered around an event that they didn't witness, that there wasn't really much evidence of except for this giant gash in the planet, and the name of the campaign, The Wounded Planet. So this apocalypse is very much in the background in this case, and that's something you can do quite easily. If you're looking for inspiration, for ideas for your campaign, well, the players could be dealing with something that happened a long time ago, an apocalypse that is over and done with, and there's just small bits of information to be found about it. And maybe they're looking for something from before the apocalypse. Or they're trying to find out why did this happen and can it happen again and how do we avoid it stop it from happening again. So I'd say if you're stuck for inspiration for a game that you're trying to create, well, think what horrible thing could have happened in the past that has its effects now that can echo through the ages. In fact, many great stories somehow seem to have an apocalypse either at the beginning or the end of it, or even the middle. Even, for instance, The Expanse, which I'm not going to give any spoilers, don't worry, but The Expanse, the TV series, the books, and now, of course, the role-playing game, it doesn't feel like a post-apocalyptic story at all. In fact, the apocalypse itself is not mentioned that much in the whole story. However, a thing happened, an apocalypse happened at some point in that universe, causing things to happen to the main characters now. And I think I did that spoiler-free, or at least I tried. And if not, well, sorry, you should have read the book sooner. And really, if you're looking for something interesting to read, those books are really amazing. And the depth with which that apocalyptic event is used to shape the story centuries later is just incredible. And similarly, a lot of fantasy novels have these apocalyptic events in them. So as you can see, the apocalypse itself doesn't have to be at the forefront. In fact, if it's in the background, it might even be more interesting. However, of course, there are ways to put it more in the foreground. So, and like the Wikipedia article that I was quoting from earlier said, it's interesting to think about if you wish to run a campaign, a story in your role-playing game that features an apocalypse. The first thing I guess to think about is, well, first of all, where are we on the timeline as players? Are we before the apocalypse? Can we try and stop it or something? Are we during the apocalypse or after? And if we're after, how far after? And what does that mean? And then the second thing to figure out is, what is the apocalyptic event? And we've seen these different types come by, so you could even make a rollable table for it if you want. In fact, there are games that give you that. And, well, one of these games that is centered around an apocalyptic event or an apocalypse, in fact, you're kind of playing through the last days of a dying world, is called Mörk Borg. I don't know if I'm saying that right, but I tried. So let's talk to its creators right now. Sadly, though, I have to say, during the interview, the audio cut out here and there, so that there were some lag issues with Zoom, and also Zoom decided to lower the volume of my microphone at some point. So I've done my very best in editing to make it all sound okay, but if you hear some oddities here and there, then, well, I'm sorry. So, welcome to the show, Pelle Nilsson and Johan Nohr, two amazing RPG heroes on the show at once. How are we ever going to top this? These chaps have created a mind-blowing RPG called Mörk Borg, which assaults the senses and your sensibilities with in-your-face design choices, jarring juxtapositions, brutal OSR-style gameplay, and by now a huge cult following. This game deservedly picked up no less than 4 gold Ennies. And by the looks of all the amazing community content being published, the doom metal of RPGs is far from done. The end is not nigh, as opposed to what happens in the game. So welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Yeah, great.
Just a minor correction there. It wasn't 4 gold Ennies, it was just 3 of them.
Oh, really?
One was a silver.
Just 3, okay.
I wanted to be correct.
Yeah, fair enough. So what's it like to win 4 Ennies? That must have been something.
Yeah, wow. It was amazing. I mean,
yeah.
You go, Pelle.
Yeah, I was sleeping through the whole procedure. It was nighttime in Sweden, and I woke up and read about it, but I expected some kind of medal for layout and design.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, silver or gold, but silver maybe or something like that.
Yeah.
It would be typical for us, but so that was a very big surprise, and I'm really happy about it.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It was a super weird thing because of the digital Gen Con that we all had to record, like regardless of how it went, you had to record a pre-recorded sort of thank you speech.
Oh.
And I remember that I was away in a cabin with a couple of friends, and we played with Mörk Borg actually.
Yeah.
And I was hungover, and it was the day after a game, and I just remembered, oh fuck, I have to record these thank you speeches for a prize that I didn't know if we were going to win or not. So
yeah, it was a special feeling.
Yeah, it was a very special feeling. Yeah.
I think I was giving that writing and product of the year speech or something like that.
Yeah.
It felt really weird because I didn't expect the writing to win.
Yeah. And so that must be weird also, especially for the people who end up not winning. So you record all this stuff, thanks guys, and then you just throw it in the bin. Or...
Yeah,
super strange.
Yeah. Also, just to say that to a camera, yeah, because
that was like being alone in a room and like, oh, thank you, everyone. Thank you.
I would like to thank my mother for
Exactly.
inspiring this apocalyptic game. Whoa. Yeah, who do you thank for that? But yeah, so and so what happens then? You get like you get it sent home or something? Is it like a physical prize that you get?
I think medals are on their way.
Oh, they're still on the way.
I haven't seen any medals yet, but there are 4 medals.
Wow.
Times 2, I guess.
Yeah.
We get one.
Oh, you both get one. Yeah.
I guess I'm gonna wear it every day at work.
Yeah.
That'd be so much fun. All these people, like, what is that for? Oh, it's an any.
Yes. Yeah.
Oh wow, that's cool. Excellent. And so the game, as I understand it, is based in the OSR kind of style of games, right? So for those listeners who are probably wondering since the intro what OSR is, what is the OSR to you? Let's put it that way. The old school Renaissance.
I'm not really sure. Actually, it's like one of those things that's very debated, at least these days, what it actually is.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure, like, I think we call it OSR because it's compatible with a lot of those OSR games, and it shares some of the ideas and the concepts.
Okay.
But it doesn't, well, it's, for those who don't know, it stands for, I think, old school Renaissance or old school revival. And it's sort of an idea that you look at how games were played when they first came in the 70s and take some of those ideas before they were too modernized. But I don't think we have the nostalgia that some of the movement has.
I have a little bit more nostalgia.
You have more than me,
I was born in the 70s and started to play role-playing games in the early 80s. So for me, I have some nostalgic thing going on. But of course, we were inspired by this. It's supposed to be quite rules light, I guess, and lots of decisions made by the game master, and that in an ironic way makes it a bit complicated as well, because you have to make up rules all the time for everything that's not in the book.
Okay.
The same goes with Mörk Borg, but we it's even less rules than those early games, a lot more. A lot less rules, and there are a lot, as a game master, you have to make up rules on the fly.
Okay. And so for you, that means you're kind of saying that that's nostalgic because you started playing early on. So when games were like that, not many rules, and it's up to the game master a lot. So what made you choose to make a game in that vein rather than the more modern vein, let's say, where a lot of things are fit into really perfectly written, clear rules where you don't really have to make a lot of on-the-fly decisions?
I think there has been 4 waves or 3 waves. It was, things happened there in the 70s, and then the games became more and more complicated with details for everything, like horse riding and playing. For every little thing you wanted to do, you need to make a check with the die. But I think this OSR movement and lots of story games and other kind of games was a reaction to that. Those over-detailed games. So now I think we are, there are 2 different movements. I think those that really like this simulationist,
I think.
Simulation game, and keep on playing that. And the others that reacted to that, those over-complicated games. Like the OSR movement.
And I think there's both within the OSR. There's both like retro clones that try to emulate that 70s feel, and also this sort of more, I don't know, art house hipstery bullshit that we're doing. That is just the sort of feeling of those games, but not necessarily the rules.
And I guess another aspect that I would recognize would be random rollable tables, right? So leaving things up to fate a bit more here and there. Yeah. And I
think it's because like you want also, sorry, like you want the game master also to be surprised in a way, and also have to be on their toes and act and not have the full story written and ready all the time. Because and I think because like the as a player you are expected in a way to always be ready and for something new and unexpected, and sometimes you forget that also the game master might want that and want to be
exactly. It's nice to feel like you're also a player when you're running the game.
We wanted to create a game more where the game master will not need a game master screen because you have no secrets because so
you don't know exactly. You don't know what's going to happen.
It's just let's roll the dice and come what may. Yeah. I like that a lot, actually. Yeah, excellent. That's one of the reasons I started to get more into either OSR style games or all the games based on the Mutant Year Zero engine, where it's also similar with lots of rollable tables and lots of we'll see
like
what
you
happens.
never know what's going to happen. Exactly.
I like that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I find interesting is that this game it appeals to the metalhead inside of me. Outwardly, the metalhead has receded along with the hairline, but but inside it's still there. And so you guys, I suppose I'm going to assume something here. You both big fans of metal, or
I guess you could say that.
Yeah. So what would you say are good bands to listen to when you're prepping your game or when you're even playing the game?
We have a list in the book that is sort of like our Appendix N, if that's what you call it.
Right, yeah.
Which is like, it's also in a way the Game Master section, that list of bands. Just like listen to these and you'll be fine.
You'll be okay, ready to go.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Excellent.
So
do you have any favorites among those, or?
Like it fluctuates a lot, at least for me. One day it's like old Norwegian black metal, and the other it's experimental drone doom. I don't know. It's very different.
Yeah. I listen to lots of other kinds of music as well. Not only metal. So.
I do too. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm not. Yeah. Maybe not a typical metalhead, but I'm still a metalhead. But I have other heads as well.
Exactly. The Hydra.
Like or like that basilisk.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
Excellent.
I mean, you can listen. I think classical music suits the game quite a lot as well. There are lots of drama things going on, and
I think that's one. Well, I think that's one thing that we should maybe experiment more with, to like not get too tied up in one musical box and one direction, So, or we at least always try to surprise ourselves as well when we do things.
Yeah, good idea. Yeah. And I totally agree with that, because I remember when I was a teenager, I was very hung up on I have to be like as metal as I can be, including walking around with inverted crosses around my neck and scaring my teachers. But the thing is, after a few years, I realized like there's more, and that's fine. And I can still, like this and also, like the other thing. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. I think interesting things happen when you mix stuff that doesn't necessarily fit together, and then it becomes something new. Kind of like if you want to tie to the book, the way that we use very bright colors and some styles that aren't necessarily common within the metal genre.
Yeah, like bright pinks and those kind of things. Yeah.
But it still works in its own weird way. It becomes something else.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Like in back in the day when I started listening to doom metal, I figured violins and metal, what? And then my dying bride showed me, sure.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. And that fueled my own first band. But anyway, we're not here to talk about that. So, and some of the book seems to breathe a bit of nihilism. And I just want to quote here for our listeners a piece from the internet encyclopedia of philosophy about nihilism, and then I want to see how that ties in with the game. So it says here that nihilism is the belief that all values are baseless and nothing can be known or communicated. It is often associated with extreme pessimism and a radical skepticism that condemns existence. A true nihilist would believe in nothing, have no loyalties, and no purpose other than perhaps an impulse to destroy. Now, that sounds grim.
Yeah.
How does that fit with Mörk Borg, that description?
Pretty well, in a way. Or I would say, well, not entirely, but there are some. I mean, the game is basically nihilism, the game, in a way, because of the inevitability of the apocalypse in it. Like, there's no way to escape it. You know when you begin this game that you are screwed, basically.
Yeah.
And I think, or at least for me, I think nihilism is a way of acknowledging that and just living with it.
Mm-hmm.
And as for a game, it isn't that big a deal, because I think a lot of people have, in a way, criticized the game for, or not criticized, but like ask the question, so if I know that everything is going to end, then where's my player agency? Like, why would I care? And I just feel like that's true for every game world, in a way.
Yeah.
You know, sooner or later, every game world is bound to end, or every character is bound to die. But
eventually.
Eventually, we just tighten the deadline a bit.
I think one thing that doesn't fit very well with nihilism is maybe that there are lots of distance to humor, glimpse in the eye, stuff in the book.
Tongue in cheek.
That often doesn't go hand in hand with nihilism. I think we don't take it too serious. This book, it's
for fun. Yeah,
I think it's fun to read.
Definitely.
It certainly looks
or
fun.
Look into
It's a way to like distance yourself to the real world ending as well. Like, you need to have a bit of fun.
I almost wrote in my intro to say something like, well, you know, since the apocalypse seems to be upon us, let's talk about Mörk Borg. It does feel like that sometimes. Yeah,
it's been a fitting year, unfortunately.
Yeah. Did that prompt any of this, or no? It's older, right? It's from 2018.
No, it's
18. It started, I believe.
Kickstarter was 2019. So, and you, Pelle, wrote it in 2018.
The year before, I started to write the first stuff about 1 year before the Kickstarter in May 2018, maybe, and the Kickstarter was in May 2019.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, so it was okay. It was kind of like an omen, and all right, and so nihilism. You know, when you read about it, and when you read a description like I just did, it sounds very grim, and like you say, some people ask, so where's my player agency? My question was more going to be, how is nihilism fun? So how is it fun that you know that everything is just over in a matter of days or weeks? Or
I think when you have that knowledge, you can just go nuts, and you can. I think someone, I can't remember who it was, but said that you should play a Mörk Borg character like you drive a stolen car. You know that it's going to end badly. Just might as well have fun while you're doing it. So if everyone is involved and know this, then you can play with that. It's kind of like when you're running, Call of Cthulhu adventure or something. You know that you're probably not going to make it. But you can still enjoy it.
Yeah, but at least in Call of Cthulhu, you get the feeling like I can push back the end of the world a bit.
Yeah, exactly.
Or try to. Yeah.
We turn it up to 11.
Yeah. I guess now that you say that, it kind of makes me think of people who find out that they will die, for instance, because of a disease or something like that. They tend to either just give up, or they tend to have kind of like a second wind where they go, okay, now I have to do all the cool stuff in the shortest amount of time, and go across the
bucket list thing. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and so the apocalypse, then, if we go from nihilism to that, because it's closely related to the end of the world. So I assume that when you write a game about the apocalypse, you've had a look at how role-playing games or how games use apocalypses or how stories use apocalypses. How can role-playing games use an apocalypse? I mean, you guys are doing it. How do you use it? Because it's a thing in your game. What effect does it have?
One easy answer is it creates a timeline, I guess, that you can play around with. If you decide to go with, a die 4, then there are only a couple of weeks to go, or if you play D100, you have a couple of years to play.
Yeah.
So it creates some kind of feeling for timeline when you're playing. So that's one answer to that question, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
What do you say, Johan?
No, exactly, because we have there's a mechanic in the game where each morning you roll a die, and if it's a 1, then a bad thing happens. We'll call them miseries.
Yeah.
And so depending on the die size, then will be a faster or longer campaign. But it also, in our game, it also changes the world, because all these miseries will be like inevitable casualties that will change the landscape or the rules of reality even in the game. So it's it sets a timeline, like Pelle said, a deadline for the whole thing.
Yeah.
And also because in our game there's not going to be a post-apocalypse to this apocalypse. The world just disappears. It's you're supposed to burn the book even, because the imaginary the shared imaginary space that you all share is gone.
Yeah.
So
some people really do that, right?
They do, and post pictures, and it's kind of funny. But because like in a way, I wrote this down when I got your questions, that because it lacks post-apocalypse, it's grimmer than your usual settings, because I think a post-apocalypse in a way is kind of a hopeful setting, because it implies that it wasn't that bad.
Yeah, the worst is over. Now we're climbing out of the deep black.
The end of the world didn't really take. So
yeah, exactly.
Now it's only going to get better, but here it's the opposite.
It's like it's really finite.
Yeah, and also because the world is so terrible, it's really a shitty place. So it's like, is it worth saving? Should you really bother? Because everyone hates it here.
Yeah, and that's interesting, because me growing up playing advanced Dungeons and Dragons, high epic fantasy, you're supposed to save the world. And you get so used
anti-heroes
to that,
in this game.
Yeah, exactly, because you get so used to that mindset that I keep thinking like, okay, so but what do the characters do? Like, so they're not saving the world, because that's
they could try. There are rumors that maybe because the basilisks know the answer to the apocalypse, maybe they can be persuaded to change it somehow, or maybe if you kill them, I don't know, this stops, because no one knows exactly what it is. Or you're just trying to go out with a bang, just get rich, or go on an adventure while you can.
The bucket list.
Exactly, bucket list.
Go down screaming.
Yeah.
All right. So it's kind of a timer. It's kind of it sounds like a way to have a diverse kind of story as the world changes around you. That's really nice, actually. I quite like that. Yeah. Because I recently got into post-apocalyptic games, so I got to thinking about the other end of the apocalypse. So it's interesting to work towards one. And
you're playing while it happens as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so it's not even a distant thing. Yeah, it's pretty close.
It's happening right now.
Yeah. And so that affects your story very much. Yeah,
it does. The game master doesn't really know either how it's going to affect you, because you roll on this prophecy table, and it could be like, all the water turns to tar in the world. So how does that affect economy, or people drinking, or the oceans, or I don't know. Dead birds fall from the sky. Does that mean that all animals die now? What happens then? Or it changes the entire landscape and the entire all the factions and everything.
Yeah, that's cool. Because then, yeah, it also forces you as a group to think like, okay, now what? Yeah.
Yeah,
we,
interpret it and
yeah, exactly. We were on our way to this blah blah place where we were going to have an amazing bath. Now there's no water.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah. Ah, okay. Yeah, so it keeps forcing you to make new choices, and I think that's really good. Yeah. And so, for instance, I'm close to ending my Dungeons and Dragons campaign with my friends, and well, like a lot of kind of high level campaigns, it's if they win, it's great, they save the world. If they lose, boom. So they cause the
High stakes.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, so they could cause an apocalypse by accident.
That's fun.
Yeah, I hope they're listening. Yeah, but then that to them that would feel like a defeat. Whereas I suppose when you finish Mörk Borg, it feels like, yeah, we did it.
In a way, yeah. You go out and you light the book on fire, and you have a drink, and you go home. Like
Yeah, exactly.
And you buy a new book.
Exactly.
Do you get a discount if you show a picture of a burnt book, or?
We can work something out. Maybe.
We can work something out.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. And so, speaking, sorry, is there anything more you wanted to say about that, or?
No.
No. Okay. So yeah, and speaking of the book, so the book itself is also a topic of much debate on the internet, and so I'm curious. So you made a couple of really, I think, brave or interesting design choices with bold colors and contrasting art and different fonts and all these things. So designing a book, like on the one hand, you're talking about art, right? And on the other hand, it's like an instruction manual, sort of. So how do you, even that is kind of a clash when you think about it. So how did you approach this? How did you find such a way to make it readable, and yet when you look at it from a distance, like, how is that readable, kind of thing?
Yeah, because that's the thing. I think it is actually quite readable.
Yeah.
It isn't as chaotic as you'd first expect or see, because the actual text blocks are very legible and everything. But I think the book is kind of like it's consisting of two parts, really. The first part is the setting and the rules, which are this flavor, experimental scene-like thing. And that's not really meant to be used while you're playing. It's more meant to be used as you're sitting in your couch and you read, you get inspired to create your own stuff.
Yeah.
And then the adventure in the back of the book, that is designed specifically to be used in the heat of the moment at the table. So it's really two different books in one, in a way, for two very different purposes.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah,
we tried to organize it. We worked with that on that quite a lot as well. We wanted things to be on one spread. If you want to read about something like fighting or equipment or whatever, we wanted everything to be on one spread, all the text, so you don't have to flip through the book and go back and forth. So
yeah, exactly. And have all the rules in the back, that like the last spread, the end pages, that's really all you need when you're playing. It's kind of like our equivalent to the Game Master screen, because it has all the rules on one side and then the index on the other side. So
that's perfect, really handy. And that's one of the things that I've heard people say. They said it's kind of, on the one hand, in the beginning when you flip through it, it's kind of weird that every page is different, it's like a different book. But they say that also means that you can perfectly remember, oh, it's about health. Here we go. It's the guy with the bleeding heart or wherever it is. And that sounds like actually like a great idea. Because if I think about how I use, for instance, my D&D 3.5 books, which are, getting kind of old, like they are, I guess, more traditional in a sense, but they also use certain imagery and certain colors and certain pictures. And I tend to know where things are based on the art rather than, oh, I'm on page 50 something. Yeah.
I mean, it's much easier to remember a picture than a number. And since the number itself doesn't have anything to do with the content, but the picture does. So yeah, exactly. That's how you usually flip through a book, I think, or navigate.
Or at least if you're visually oriented, let's say.
Exactly. Exactly.
Because I should at this point shout out to a good friend of mine, Brian, who at some point actually was able to say, if you told him the name of a D&D monster, he would be able to tell you straight away the page number in the monster manual. That's amazing.
That's
Yeah.
amazing. Okay.
Yeah. So in RPG design, in all these books, since you're creating RPG books, I'm sure you've read a few in your time and maybe analyzed how is this done. Like, what sort of trends do you see nowadays in RPG design? Because I'm getting the feeling things are changing a bit. Like there's more variation out there.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of games coming out, and it's more and more easy for everyone to just make your own game and publish
Yeah.
it. Like it's not really that you don't have to have a publisher or even a printing house or anything. You can kickstart something, but you can also just make it and put it on itch or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot of interesting stuff coming, and I think one thing is that what we were talking about earlier, the like random tables and everything is kind of a trend maybe that I'm seeing. Like use the unpredictability and also replayability in a way.
Yeah.
It's very easy to add to it, write new tables.
Okay. Yeah. And art.
And I think it's very common with the books coming out nowadays. It's not. It's bits and pieces from different kind of earlier rule books that we offer enjoyed. So you know, like the encumbrance rules comes from this game, and the combat rules comes from this game and stuff like that. So I think it's a mishmash of lots of earlier books that are combined into the best book the author can think about. So maybe I see that quite a lot as well. There's
it's like a remix culture.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. That makes kind of sense. Yeah.
And also something I thought about now is because we recently opened up a third-party license that we have that lets people create stuff for Mörk Borg and just publish it for free or to sell. And I think I've seen a lot of companies do that as well, to just have these sort of open game licenses or third-party licenses, and so just to like involve the community and encourage people to create for the game is something that I see more and more, which I love.
Yeah, and they don't just keep it at home, but they spread it around. Yeah,
exactly.
What's the effect of that? Because I can imagine that traditionally companies wouldn't have done that because they say, well, hey, don't publish stuff with our name on it. Woo. But now you see companies doing that. So what's changed? How is it good for you when people do that?
I mean, for us, it's basically just to get more stuff out there in the open. What do you say? So basically just more content for people to play, and if it means that people get an eye open for our game and buys it, then that's just a plus. But really the main point for us is to get more content out there and let people create. And
and then the pressure is kind of off you a bit, I suppose.
Definitely,
that was one thing as well with this third-party license, was that we were sent lots of mails. We had this Mörk Borg cult where we get texts and Johan make layout and we publish it for free. And that queue in the mailbox was getting kind of long as well. I think we had worked for 1.5 years or something like that.
Wow.
And that was building quite a lot of pressure, I think. A little bit stressful. It's very nice, and we are very grateful and humble. But the negative perspective is
really sustainable. Exactly.
That we don't want people to have to wait for us to be ready for that in maybe 2021 or something. So
exactly.
They can publish, and then I think that was what happened as well. I think I saw 5 new things coming out the first week or something from people.
Okay. Wow. Yeah.
It's kind of like removed us as the bottleneck, because we kind of, as you said, we kind of felt that frustration almost. It's like, oh, we sent you this stuff, and because we really love the stuff and we want to work with it, but there's so little time to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
As we said before we were recording, we both do this on our free time, and we both have full-time jobs and families and everything, and so we have a very limited amount of hours, and we want to do the Mörk Borg cult things, and we want to do the next, official stuff that we're doing, and there's so many projects that we want to make. So this was a way to relieve that sort of burden in a way, or the workload.
Yeah, that's smart. And I guess it also kind of rewards the community for, by saying basically, we think you make such good quality content, why not publish it? Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, right.
Yeah, that's excellent. Yeah. And I guess I was recently at a talk about the future of the world economy, and they were saying similar things about how maybe even other things than RPG publishing will become like that. So, for instance, they were talking about how if universities want to keep existing, they probably have to become more of a community thing rather than an authority thing. They share their knowledge, and that's why people come, rather than they hoard their knowledge, and that's why people come begging, please, I'll give you all my thousands of dollars so I can study with you. Yeah.
I think you need to shift that kind of power balance in a way, to not be as authoritative and share what you have more.
Exactly. That's it. That's how we're going to get forward and maybe, steer away from this bloody apocalypse that's hanging above our heads. Absolutely. Yeah. And so you both mentioned before that there's other RPGs or that influenced or that you liked before. And one question that I ask every single one of my guests, because this show is called RPG Heroes, and the people that I invite, I call them RPG heroes because they do cool stuff for the hobby. So the question I ask all of my guests, so now I have to ask it twice, is who is your personal hero when it comes to role-playing games? And that's a tough one, I know. That's why I send it before the interview. So who would like to take that one first?
Yeah, go ahead, Johan.
It's very difficult, as you said. And I wonder if I can take the cheesy way out and say, but this is very honest though, but maybe not the answer that you were looking for, but I think it's every person that logs into our Discord channel or our Facebook group, or, everyone who creates stuff for the third-party license or for the Mörk Borg cult, just hangs out in our Discord every day and just comes up with these amazing things.
Yeah.
And our community has, for some reason, become very welcoming and hospitable and friendly. And so, those are my heroes.
Okay. Yeah, I'm a little bit boring because I feel a little bit the same way.
Yeah.
It's very hard to come up with any heroes. Everyone else, maybe Gary Gygax and Dave Arneson, but
a lot of those names have come
heroes
by.
Is a strong word.
I know. Think. Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, but I think that's a great answer, because I think that your game and what you've created and what's kind of sprung up because of it probably surprised you in a way, as in like, whoa, this it's huge. And what I like about it is it's so lively. My audio seems to be coming back a bit. I don't know.
Yeah, there was some issue there, but I think.
Oh dear.
We'll fix it in post.
Let's start over. Yeah, no. I'll see if I can fix it in post. I hope so, because I heard myself a bit softer as well. Well, we'll find out. But like you're saying, I think the community around Mörk Borg seems super interested and very creative, and like you don't always see that with games, and it must be a super rewarding feeling.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And unexpected, as you said, definitely.
Yeah.
We really, we were aiming for that a bit. That's why we did a setting that was 10-page long and very the rules very rules light, and lots of random tables and user friendly starting adventure and stuff like that. And of course, Johan's art is very appealing, but we didn't expect that reaction. That's for sure.
Yeah.
We were hoping for like 200 backers or something like that for the core book.
Yeah.
That was the goal. Yeah.
We are both super pessimists when it comes to Kickstarter. At least me, I am.
Oh, yeah.
So we're always pleasant surprised. But
Yeah.
I think for the community, we try to be very like open and easy to work with. That's the goal, at least, and just not very protective. And I think it's a good idea to.
It worked out.
People, trust people to be good.
Yeah. And it's funny to see that the most grim and kind of scary looking game out there has like the most friendly, nice fans. It's kind of like with the music, like I remember back in the 90s when I was going to metal shows and all that stuff a lot, and I looked kind of scary, but to me that was just normal, and my friends were all like that, and those were usually the nicest guys in the whole school.
That's usually how it is.
Yeah. You'll rarely get punched up in a metal bar, unless you do something really stupid.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you both super much for this interview. It was really great, very interesting and insightful talk about nihilism. So we got some philosophy out of the way, and I think we also maybe gave some people ideas of what you can do with an apocalypse. It's not necessarily a bad thing. It can be good to work towards, or to work from, or to have as a central theme. Why not? Yeah. And let's all buy this game and play it as something on our bucket list. All right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, two magnificent heroes to face the apocalypse with together. And I have to say, it helps to have some friends when the world is dying around you, including your microphone. And I have to say, like I said during the interview, I think it was a very interesting educational experience to talk to these guys about an apocalyptic game. And one of my main takeaways, I would say, is that the OSR, so the old school Renaissance, isn't necessarily one thing. In fact, it could be a nostalgia for a certain style or a certain feeling, more than maybe even mechanically. But also it could be the other way around. It could be more of a mechanical thing where you say, well, we want it to be rules light. Maybe more decisions should rest on the shoulders of the game master rather than on a plethora of rules. Less simulationism, more random tables. So this particular game, for instance, is super modern when it comes to design and certain ideas, and at the same time it has some old school features. The other thing that I found interesting is that nihilism, when you read about it, is terribly depressing, really. But it's actually fun when you realize that, well, if the world's going to end anyway, who cares? You can do whatever you want. And actually, bucket lists are a super popular thing for that exact reason. And I quote Johan on this, that if you stole a car and then drive it, it can be exhilarating. Because it's not yours and it's not going to stay yours for long, so you might as well ride it like you stole it. And we found that an apocalypse is a great story device for all kinds of reasons. One is a time limitation, and in any kind of game, putting a limitation on time, whether it's in a very small scale, so saying if you don't reach this door within 3 rounds, blah 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 is going to happen, or on a very big scale, if we don't, stop the bomb from going off in 2 hours, then then it's all over. Time limitations, they cause tension, they create tension, which creates drama, which in turn, in a game at least, creates fun. It also changes the world around you, which makes things exciting and interesting all over again, perhaps in stages, or not, and that means that the backdrop to your story becomes more diverse, which is just amazing. And for once, it's actually fun to see how it all ends, because a lot of games focus on stopping such a thing from happening or saving the world. Well, it could be fun to see how it just all falls apart, because it's a game, so it doesn't actually matter. Because, of course, it's horrible to see how the world currently is falling apart. That's no fun at all. But in a game, sure, why not? Yeah. And we had a look at game design because, I mean, they won some Emmys on that front, so I figured we should talk about that. And, well, game design also seems to be changing quite a bit. And one way is that more and more companies are opening up their game to third-party content and community content through an open license. And I think that's just a wonderful, wonderful thing. And I hope that keeps happening. Because there are many, many creative people out there. And they want to create stuff for the games that they love. But then, can I publish it, yes or no? It's very complicated. And now a lot of companies are making this easier, which means that the cool ideas that people have can be shared more easily and the game becomes richer for it. So, in conclusion, throw an apocalypse in your game and, well, see where it all ends. Well, that's it for episode 21. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed recording. If you did, please consider leaving a 5-star review on iTunes. It really helps to get the podcast get heard. Want to keep up with the latest news about my podcast? Well, hop on over to Twitter at RPGHeroes1. Check out the full show notes with all the links at rpgheroes.buzzsprout.com. Want to support the show and join other supporters on my Discord channel? Then I would be honored if you check out my Patreon page at patreon.com/rpgheroes. You can also buy RPG products with my affiliate code. Check the show notes for more information. 2 weeks from now, well, who knows if the world still exists? We'll find out soon enough. Until next time, stay heroic.